January 7, 2009, the financial world braced for impact. In a single shattering email, the founder of India's fourth-largest IT company confessed to a fraud of unimaginable scale. This wasn't just a corporate misstep, it was a deliberate, decade-long deception. Ramalinga Raju, the man hailed as an industry visionary, admitted he had been riding a tiger, not knowing how to get off. The tiger, a colossal lie, woven into the very fabric of Satyam Computer Services Limited. Satyam, a global IT giant with 53,000 employees across 66 countries, was revealed to be little more than a mirage. Its success, its profits, its very foundation, all built on air. Over $3 billion in shareholder wealth vanished overnight. Pensions, life savings, entire futures incinerated. The ripple effect threatened to shatter not just one company, but India's reputation on the global stage. This wasn't just a financial crime, it was a profound betrayal of trust. How could such an elaborate deception persist for so long? How did one man, surrounded by top executives and renowned auditors, construct such a vast empire of lies? And when the truth finally emerged, what was the real cost of this terrifying illusion? This is the story of the Satyam fraud, a cautionary tale about ambition, fear, and the dangerous fragility of corporate integrity. To understand the collapse, we must first understand the construction. Before the fall, there was the meteoric rise. In the 1990s and early 2000s, Satyam Computer Services was a shining star in India's booming IT landscape. It embodied the dreams of a newly globalized India: innovation, growth, and a bridge to the future. Founded by Ramalinga Raju in 1987, Satyam quickly grew into a major player, providing software development and IT services to clients worldwide. It was a company built on intellect, ambition, and the promise of endless expansion. From Hyderabad, it reached out to Wall Street, London, and Tokyo. Raju cultivated an image as a visionary leader, a man who understood the future of technology and the power of ethical business. He spoke of corporate governance, transparency, and shareholder value. Satyam became a blue-chip stock, a safe haven for investors, big and small, seeking a piece of India's economic miracle. They believed in the numbers, year after year, showing consistent, incredible growth. But beneath this gleaming facade, a different story was unfolding. The relentless pressure to maintain a narrative of exponential growth, to keep the stock price climbing, proved irresistible. Raju wanted his empire to expand indefinitely, to maintain his legacy, and perhaps to avoid the painful truth that genuine growth couldn't always match the market's insatiable appetite. He surrounded himself with loyalists, his brother Rama Raju as managing director, and Vadlamani Srinivas, the chief financial officer. Together, they began to manufacture a reality. It started small, a few adjustments here, an inflated number there, to cover a minor gap. But once you start down that path, the numbers begin to dictate you. The small adjustments became giant leaps into pure fiction. For years, this carefully constructed illusion held. Auditors, both internal and the globally recognized Price Waterhouse, signed off on the books. Analysts lauded the firm's robust performance. Investors poured in their capital. No one seemed to question the improbable consistency, the almost magical growth. The house of cards stood tall, built not on concrete, but on an ever-expanding foundation of fabricated numbers. The problem with an illusion, however, is that it demands ever greater spectacle to maintain its deception. Eventually, the magic runs out. Now for the hidden reality. Imagine Satyam as a magnificent Lego castle and its ambitious creator, Raju, as the child determined to build the grandest castle possible. But here's the problem. Raju's ambition far outstripped his supply of actual Lego bricks. So he improvised. He began to cheat. First, the lie of the bigger castle. Raju wanted his castle to look bigger than it truly was. He didn't earn more real money. He simply started drawing extra bricks on paper, pretending they were part of the structure. This was the inflation of revenues, the creation of fictitious profits. "Look how many projects I'm doing," he'd tell everyone, even as many were entirely imaginary. Next, the fake treasure chest. To make his grand fake castle believable, Raju needed to show a huge pile of Lego money to keep building. So he'd draw pictures of stacks of money and place them into an imaginary bank account. He'd even fabricate receipts from this bank to prove the money was there. But in reality, the treasure chest was almost empty. These were fictitious cash and bank balances, particularly fake fixed deposit receipts, accounting for a massive chunk of Satyam's supposed assets. How did he justify money leaving this empty treasure chest for imaginary projects? He invented invisible builders, shell companies and non-existent vendors, often controlled by him and his associates. He'd create fake bills, fictitious invoices, for services never rendered or materials never supplied. He would then pretend to pay these bills, making it appear that real expenses were occurring, artificially balancing the books. It was a sophisticated, self-perpetuating cycle of deception. Eventually, even the actual real Lego bricks Raju possessed weren't enough to sustain the appearance of the smaller, legitimate parts of his castle. He started borrowing real money, taking real loans, to fund day-to-day operations, all while continuing to maintain the illusion of a much larger, fabricated enterprise. The money from these loans, intended for legitimate growth, was sometimes diverted to plug holes created by the fraud. And the auditors? Price Waterhouse, Satyam's external auditors, were meant to be the guardians of financial truth. Yet they too were seemingly blindfolded. They signed off on Raju's drawings and fake receipts, failing spectacularly to count the real bricks or verify the true treasure chest. For years, they stamped approved on falsified accounts, either through gross negligence or, some argue, complicity. The deception was intricate, but it was unsustainable. The first crack in the facade appeared on December 16, 2008. Satyam's board announced a proposal to acquire two companies, Maytas Properties and Maytas Infrastructure, both owned by Raju's family. The price tag? A staggering $1.9 billion. Investors and corporate governance experts immediately smelled a rat. The strategic rationale was non-existent, the price exorbitant, and the conflict of interest blatant. Why use Satyam's cash to buy Raju's illiquid family assets? The market revolted. Satyam's stock plummeted over 30% in hours. Faced with an unprecedented backlash, the board was forced to retract the proposal, but the damage was done. The smoke was visible. The failed Maytas acquisition was a desperate attempt to use Satyam's non-existent cash to buy real assets, thereby filling the gaping hole in the company's balance sheet. But it only highlighted the chasm between reality and fiction. The truth was now a hungry tiger, closing in. There was no internal whistleblower, no hero to expose the fraud from within. Only Raju, trapped by his own deception, staring into the abyss, knowing he could no longer hide. The time for confession was nearing. The date that would live in infamy, January 7, 2009. Ramalinga Raju sent an email to his board, to his employees, to the stock exchanges. He confessed. The confession letter was not an act of heroism, it was an act of desperation. The tiger was at the door, and the only way out was to blow up the entire castle. His confession revealed a catastrophic, fraudulent balance sheet, built on fictitious assets and non-existent cash. Forensic auditors, brought in by a new government-appointed board, quickly found the smoking guns. They unearthed reams of forged bank statements and fixed deposit receipts, purporting to show billions of rupees that simply weren't there. They found mountains of fictitious sales invoices for non-existent projects, transactions that dissolved under scrutiny. And then there were the audit work papers of Price Waterhouse, a testament to a shocking lack of diligence, a professional failure of monumental proportions that enabled this fraud for years. These documents, in their damning detail, weren't just evidence. They were the nails in the coffin. Raju and his brother, Rama Raju, were arrested shortly after the confession, along with CFO Vadlamani Srinivas. Their fall from grace was swift and public. The once revered visionary became a symbol of corporate greed and deception. The Indian government immediately stepped in, dissolving the existing board and appointing its own members to salvage what remained of Satyam. The task was monumental: assess the damage, stabilize operations, and find a buyer. This intervention was critical not just for Satyam's 53,000 employees, but for India's credibility as a global business hub. The eyes of the world were watching, eager to see if India could clean up its own house. In April 2009, after a hotly contested bidding process, Tech Mahindra acquired Satyam Computer Services. It was a lifeline, a chance for redemption. The company was rebranded as Mahindra Satyam, beginning a long and arduous journey to rebuild trust and re-establish its place in the industry. The fallout was instant and devastating. On the day of Raju's confession, Satyam's stock plummeted by over 80% on the New York Stock Exchange. Thousands of individual investors who had poured their life savings into this once trusted company watched their wealth evaporate. Mutual funds, provident funds, even employee stock options, all worthless. The total loss to shareholders: an estimated $3 billion. Beyond the immediate financial implosion, over 53,000 Satyam employees faced agonizing uncertainty, their careers shadowed by the scandal. And the damage extended far beyond Satyam itself. Brand India, once celebrated for its ethical IT industry, suffered a severe reputational blow, spooking foreign investors and forcing a critical re-evaluation of corporate governance across the nation. Raju and his co-conspirators faced justice. In 2015, after years of legal proceedings, Ramalinga Raju and 9 others were convicted of criminal conspiracy, cheating and falsification of accounts, receiving 7-year rigorous imprisonment sentences. While they were later granted bail, the conviction sent a clear message: corporate fraud, no matter how elaborate, will not go unpunished. The Satyam fraud serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of robust corporate governance, vigilant auditing, and ethical leadership. It exposed the vulnerabilities within India's regulatory framework and sparked significant reforms. From this house of illusions, a new foundation for transparency and accountability began to emerge. The cost was immense, but the lessons learned are invaluable.